Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports alongside Mr. Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. So much to talk about this week, and we're going to start in just a moment, but we'd like to thank our sponsors, Scotty's Pub of Fall River, Citywide Glass of Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton, Lakeville Athletic Club from Lakeville, and attorney John B. Seed, under Bedford Attorney, and you can reach him at johnseedlaw.com. Wow, a lot going on in the world of sports there, Chris.
Yeah, it sure is. NFL obviously getting into a couple of weeks. Major League Baseball just around the corner, getting to their playoffs, finishing up. Obviously, great September, just a few weeks away before they get to wild cards and playoffs there too. So, yeah, some real good sports action here in New England.
Well, I want to start in with the Patriots if we could, because there were a couple of things in that game that really irritated me. Okay. And I know it sounds like I get irritated easily with the sports, but it does make it kind of fun in a way because you got to put yourself through the ringer. You know what I mean? But there were 2 points in that game, and I put the question up there. At what point in the game did the game get lost? I mean, some people pointed to the pass interference penalty, which was a really bad call. A couple of people pointed to the fact that at the end of the half, they really should have ran the clock out, and Seattle ended up coming down and get a field goal. At the end of the game, they had a chance, of course, to do it overtime. Here's my take on that. Number one, the sack,
Yep.
right? So I'm watching the game, right? And I'm thinking the year that the Patriots came back against Atlanta, remember Atlanta put themselves out of field goal range? They could have kicked the field goal, won the game. This wasn't as clear cut as that, but 3rd down and 6. You're at the enemy 25-yard line. It's something like 5 minutes left in the game. And I'm looking at the television. My wife is sitting there, and I'm like, just run the ball. Try to get a first down. You've been running the ball all day. I know 3rd down and 6. Maybe you're not going to get a first down there. Just run the ball and kick a 35-yard field goal and force them to come all the way down the field to get a touchdown. With your defense and the way the game was really a defensive struggle, that would have been unlikely. So I'm watching this. I'm thinking to myself, all right, anything but a turnover or a sack. No turnover, no sack, okay? Please, no turnover, no sack, right? So then he drops back, sack. So I'm thinking, oh, God, well, he's still in field goal range. Yeah, but now you're talking about a 50-yard field goal. And I know that there was a missed assignment that may have happened if it was closer. But I don't know. It just seems like there was more pressure to kick the long field goal, obviously. And, of course, it didn't happen. So I'm thinking, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. They've just blown the game. That's what I was thinking. They've just blown the game. But then, for whatever reason, Seattle comes down 3rd and 1. They don't make it. For some reason, they didn't have the guts to go for it on 4th and 1. I mean, to stop 2 pushes in a row, not easy. Okay, we get into overtime. So I'm thinking to myself, whatever you do, if you win the toss, don't take the ball. Okay, please don't take the ball. You win the toss, don't take the ball. Right? So they win the toss, and they're taking the ball. I'm like, take the ball. No, don't take the ball. The way their offense was operating, what were the chances of them going all the way down the field and getting a touchdown? I would say almost zero. Their best chance was to give them the ball because their offense wasn't doing that great all day. Force them to go all the way down and get a touchdown. Probably hold them. And now all you have to do is work in the field goal range and kick a field goal, which is what they did to us. So I think those are the 2 parts of the game that I really, really got upset is the sack and taking the ball in overtime. I know there's some disagreement about taking the ball in overtime, but I don't know. That's how I saw it as a fan. Interested to see what Chris's thoughts are.
Well, I had spoke to you the week before, and I said the key to the Patriots is what Geno Smith is going to do with that offense. And I thought Geno Smith had an outstanding game.
He did.
And he was able to get passes away and down the field and hit some big plays. And he showed the character that made them win that game. And so the Patriots didn't have that. And they had no answers in the secondary to stop the passing game. So, 1, let's give Geno Smith credit. Number 2, again, I'm still going with this offensive line, Paul, because it was all dinking and dunking, getting it to Hunter Henry, no big plays down the field, couldn't get anything long. And then you're under pressure when you actually went back to try to pass a little bit longer, a.k.a. the sack that you talked about. And probably, yes, should have ran the ball there, and it would have been a lot easier. So I have to go by, what was given that particular series and what's been going on in the game. So the Pats still have to find a way to get some offense down the field, or they're going to struggle all year. That needs to be better. As for the overtime, Paul, I'm a firm believer. I want the ball in my hands, number 1. To start the overtime. Number 2, you have to realize one breakaway play can win a ball game. So you have to look at it as if I can get one run and the guy goes 80 yards and we score, one screen pass, I get a block and we score. I get that, yeah, it wasn't in their favor going, but I'd rather have the ball and give myself the chance and then kick away and then maybe stop them. I'm more of that kind of way, because I always think in the NFL, it's one play and things can go well for you. So
Right.
it didn't work out for them. I don't know if I can sit back and say, I'm going to go on D. I'm going to go on D. I'm going to go on D. I just don't know, because let's say you stop them, they're still going to punt the ball away, and you're still going to get the ball, deep, and then have to do something. But I just like to have it first, and hopefully something good can come out of it, and and make something happen. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but at the same time, that's just my philosophy, and I'm sure coaches have their own specific philosophy during overtimes. But I thought Geno Smith was very good for Seattle. And the Patriots need help getting the ball down the field and not just dink and dunk to Hunter Henry, dink and dunk, and hopefully they can run. And they clock manage very well. I just thought they got beat down the end by a better team and a better quarterback at the time.
I was so fired up watching this Patriots game and this discussion that we're having here that actually called up Felger and Maz, and I got on to Felger and Maz and I went through this rant. And Felger actually said what you're saying, I think you want to take the ball there. But then the next day, Greg Bedard from Boston Sports Journal came on. He's like, oh, no, they should have kicked it. So obviously people can disagree. But if you have an opinion on any of this, give us a call here, 774-218-3393. Let's go to the phones right away and say hello to Ben in Dartmouth. Good evening.
Good evening, Paul. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, Ben.
I'm doing well. Personally, I think the Patriots played a little bit. I thought they played fine, to be honest with you. I thought it was a close game. I thought it was a good game. Personally, I think our defense, our running defense, for example, showed what they proved the other day. Making great stops, two and a half yards. They've allowed 2.5 yards per carry. Keon White, he's legit, man. Third in the league with sacks with 4 on the year. And, even losing Judon in the preseason, and he's a real big step up for this team. Along with that, the Patriots, too, I think they have a young offensive coordinator, just learning the playbook a little bit. I thought his calls were questionable a little bit. I felt like at the end of the day, the better team won, like Chris said. But, yeah.
It was a tough one. It was a game that, the Patriots are going to struggle to get a lot of wins this year. And so when you have it, Chris, right, it was right there for the taking. Having said everything that Ben said and you said about, their weaknesses and so forth, like it was just there for the taking. Like they just could have finished them off. Like it was right there for the taking.
Yeah, I agree with Ben with the run defense. I thought it was the secondary part where Geno was allowed to be like, I don't have the stats in front of me, but let's say 27 for 34 and over 300 yards. For Geno Smith to do that on the road is pretty impressive. And I know he's got some great receivers, and I thought that the Pats would be able to shut that down a little bit more, and they just didn't do it. Yeah, they lost one of their key linebackers during that game, went out with a shoulder injury. I know that kind of hurt him, and I thought they'd be able to stop the run, but I think it just came down to what Geno could do, and he just had it that day to put him over the top and push him over the edge in overtime.
Do you think, Chris, that there was a little bit of out coaching going on there? I've been hearing that a little bit. That in other words, they adjusted, like Hunter Henry was just like money in that first quarter, and then they made some kind of adjustment, and we couldn't get the ball to him anymore after that. So did they do some things and make some adjustments that maybe we didn't do?
Well, I'm sure they did. I don't think, he outmanaged, Mayo any better in that particular situation. I thought the clock management was good. I thought they still ran the ball well. They did what they could, in the red zone a couple of times to help themselves out, but they just had a play here and there not go their way. The sack was a big one, obviously, and you take away a field goal, and now instead of being only up 3, you would have been up 6, and then force them to come down and score. Yeah, so I don't think that's management I just think it's, pass protection and not the opportunity to get another first down or an opportunity to kick a field goal, and they took themselves out of it. So I wouldn't say it's poor coaching, but the execution was better by Seattle when they needed it more than the Patriots.
So, Ben, we got to go down to New York now and take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. What do you think about that one? Do we get any kind of chance in that one?
Yeah, I think we have a chance 100%. Although, I mean, their defense is pretty much injured. Garrett Wilson has been pretty quiet this season. I think he has 117 yards so far and no touchdowns. So between him and Christian Gonzalez, that's going to be a great matchup to look out for tomorrow. I feel like the running defense is going to step up, and like Aaron Rodgers is probably going to have a bad day along with Keon White, on that line too. You know, that defensive line has looked red hot for the Patriots so far. I'm pretty shocked of how they have played for the past 2 weeks. That defense, last year people slept on the defense. They mainly focused on the team sucking, and they didn't realize how good the defense was. So
no, I agree. I forgot how good they are. They got a very good defense, and they're missing a couple of their top guys too. Obviously Judon from last year. But I'm looking at the list of people. You actually have an advantage over the rest of us. But I'll give you a break and ask you what your Patriot prediction for the year is. We get 2 games in. They're 1-1. Everybody. We got all of our regulars here saying, "Oh, they're going to go 4-13. They're going to go 6-11. They're going to go whatever." What do you think? What do you think their record's going to be at the end? If you just had to guess and just go out on a limb.
That's a really tough question. It could go anyway.
Well, give me something.
Depending on whether the offense plays good, depending on how many games Drake May starts for the Patriots and whatnot.
You're making all kinds of qualifiers here.
Yeah, depending on all what happens with the Patriots throughout the season, I definitely say the ceiling right now is 8 wins. I think the floor is probably 4 wins. So it could go anyway.
All right.
Depending if the defense holds on this season. Our defense is the main key to our team. So.
All right, Ben. Well, thank you very much for calling. It's always enjoyable to hear from you, and hopefully we'll hear from you again.
Of course. Good night, guys.
All right, Ben from...
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, well, if this happens, if that happens, if this happens, that's so we're gonna put him that he, maybe a 7-10, 8-9. The guy that really we have to keep an eye on is Scott. Scott from Mattapoisett, who said the Patriots are going to go 10-7. Well, he must have been throwing things at the TV the other day, because had they gone to 2-0, you know what I mean? That's a big, for a team like the Patriots that are, maybe they can scratch and still be in the conversation when teams are going for the wild card. To go to 1-1 when you could have been 2-0. It was there for the taking, Chris. I was there for the taking.
Well, let me ask you this, Paul. After the first 2 weeks and they're 1-1, are you more excited than you were last year in what you're seeing in them first 2 weeks to know that they're in a lot of ball games right now, even though it's only been 2?
Well, you and I are actually on the money here as far as both of us predicting to be 1-1. You had it flipped, but still Cincinnati and Seattle, you and I had them at 1-1 at this point.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I'm actually more encouraged, I have to say, because they're competitive. I mean, Cincinnati almost lost to Kansas City. Now that whole thing where you compare opponents, it never works. I do it all the time, but it never works. But I still do it anyway. So I'm looking at Cincinnati. I'm thinking, geez, even Patrick Mahomes is having trouble with these guys. You know what I mean? He's lucky and he moved him down the field and in the end in Patrick Mahomes fashion. But still, he was kind of fortunate there. It was a long field goal they had to kick. It was like a 50-yard field goal. It's not like he got him all the way down into the red zone. So he just barely got by the Bengals. And then, Seattle, I don't know. I don't think Seattle's no joke. You know what I mean? They're pretty good. So the Patriots have been competitive 2 weeks in a row, and they do a lot of things, they grind it out and they make you work for points and things like that. But the thing is that going to work as you go through the schedule when you see teams like, when you see Aaron Rodgers and you see the 49ers and stuff like that? You're going to be able to grind the other team to a halt like that? I think it's going to be harder with some of these teams. But to answer your question, yes, I'm encouraged.
Yeah, and it's a short week, Paul, because they played them all night. So,
right.
Think about that Sunday to Thursday, how banged up they are. It's not like Aaron Rodgers had 2 tremendous first week games. I mean, he was okay. Nothing against San Fran, but he was okay against Tennessee. Nothing, outstanding. He did enough to get the job done, and they ended up winning it by 7. So, I still think there's a promise for this game for the Patriots to stick around in it. And, it just feels like one of these kind of games, 13-10 kind of a final. I don't see it being very high scoring. I think it's going to be kind of close and come down to the end with a field goal.
All right. Well, shout out to Lisa. She says, "Hi, fellas. Really enjoy watching your shows, Paul." And I see that she's using plural there, shows, because this show and my other show are totally different. So thank you very much for your support. And look at the second part here. She says, "Chris, please offer your advice to the Patriots. They could use it. If you were the coach, is there anything that you would be trying to do? I mean, the defense is certainly good. The running game is really what you have to lean on. Is there anything different that you'd be doing?" Would you say, Chris? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead again. Say it again.
Would you be doing anything different than the coaches are doing? What would you do if you were the coach?
Well, I mean, you're trying to be conservative, Paul. You're trying to create some turnovers and then take your chances. They just got to find a way to pass protect better so they can open it up a little bit more to get the ball down the field. But I think the run game has been very good. Stevenson has done a good job. I can't question that. You're using Henry. You're trying to find some other, but they're not getting a lot of yards right now. So there's got to be a little bit more creativity going down the field, and hopefully they can find it.
Yeah, there's no deep threat, and that just makes them predictable too when they fall behind. You and I do a lot of high school games, and you have a high school game, and you have one team is like a high-powered, highfalutin offense, and the other team doesn't have that. The other team always tries to run the ball, keep the ball away from the other team, ball control, and all that. And you can stay close like that, but how often does that team win that game? You know what I mean? So the Patriots are kind of trying to do that a little bit, aren't they? Keep the ball away from this guy, keep the ball away from that. Well, yeah, well, you can keep the ball away from the other guy, but when you got the ball, you still got to do something with it.
Yeah, you do. Don't get me wrong. You still got to get the job done and execute your offense. And that's what, Brissett, tries to extend the play as best he can. He's going to take some shots. He's going to take some licks. And I think that's why he's in May, and they keep Brissett, and hopefully he can hang on and make a couple of big plays here and there against the Jets and see if they can sneak one out in New York.
Well, in all fairness to him in that 3rd and 6 play, the sack play that I was talking about, I think it was just a matter of, I'm looking at the TV and I'm thinking, geez, I don't know if this is the time to try. I mean, obviously, if he drops back and he throws a touchdown, game's over. So I can understand that, or if he gets the first down there, you know what I mean? So in all fairness to Brissett, he dropped back and he basically there was no time to do anything. He couldn't even throw the ball out of bounds. I mean, they came in like Niagara Falls, so it wasn't really his fault. I think it's just a question of, the play call there. I just think if you kick that field goal and you force them to come all the way down the field, I think that would have been the better way to go. Now, by the way, I just want to mention the phone number. You all know it. It's up on the screen, 774-218-3393. If you want to talk about this or a couple of other items that we're going to throw out there in a few minutes. One of them is the top 100 NBA list. This would be the ESPN. No, it's not the. Was it ESPN? Yeah, it was ESPN. No, CBS Sports. Top 100 current NBA players. And I was looking down this list. And I'm like, well, I can agree with a lot of them. I think they're off a little bit on a couple of these players. Chris is like, I know where this is headed already. Are you having trouble hearing me?
Lost you there for a minute, Paul.
All right, how about now? You can hear me now? Yeah, Chris is operating in Plan B over there. This is the Plan B setup. Oh, he's going, gone. All right, well, while Chris is trying to reconnect, we'll send you that phone number again, 774-218-3393. I fill in on WBSM, and of course, it's a little bit of a different situation. People are talking about current affairs. They're talking about politics. They're talking about all kinds of different things. And in most cases, I'm there alone. I'm not talking to anybody. So I can talk by myself if I have to. It's not as much fun, obviously, but it's a situation where, we can do it if we have to. Chris is trying to come back in. It's not working. So what I'm going to do, Chris, if you can hear me, I am going to send you yet another link. So let's see if I can send him the link. there's a link here that I can send him that allows him to come in on the show. And by the way, if you're one of our regulars, this would be a good time to give me a call at 774-218-3393. I'm going to send Chris Santos the link. There's a setup here. We use StreamYard, which is a broadcast style studio that people used a lot during COVID. And of course, we can still use it now. But sometimes, Chris is actually just finishing up at school. And sometimes when he's in a different location, maybe the internet's a little bit different. I know a lot of the schools are not letting the kids access the internet anymore. So sometimes the school makes it difficult. I know my son's a school teacher, and if I try to reach him during the day, he can't get on the internet, all this kind of stuff. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you. Oh, there's Chris. Let's see if Chris is back again. Hey, it is Chris. I guess what I would say is, if you can move around the room a little bit, maybe get closer to the window, or I don't know, try to get to a location where the signal is a little bit stronger. And again, we are going to pass that phone number out to you at 774-218-3393. Can you hear me now? All right. Well, I guess Chris's signal has failed us a little bit. Well, the picture looks better. He looks better, but he can't hear me. Well, sometimes not being able to hear me is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, 774-218-3393. What is the point of the game that you think the Patriots lost the game? How about that pass interference penalty? Oh, that was god awful. That pass interference penalty was absolutely horrendous. I think the cornerback that the Patriots had the penalty called on said that either the official or the wide receiver was like, that wasn't a penalty. So I don't know quite what happened there. So the Patriots, I think they really, I don't know, they kind of, I would say they kind of got into a situation where the officials kind of hurt them a little bit. So that was definitely a key play in the game. All right, Chris Santos, how are you? Well, we're going to go to Plan C.
Okay, buddy.
So we can chat for a few minutes. We can wind it down early. I was just explaining to our audience that you're at finishing up school. Now you were at the college, right?
No, I'm actually in New Bedford. I have open house this evening. I finished up, and I have to do things right here in school. And with this new laws and what they want to get done with no phones in the schools, I'm sure they have a lot of Wi-Fi connections that make it a little bit more tougher. And so we're just having some technical difficulties.
Well, so that makes sense because a lot of times you call me, I think, after your tennis practice, which would be up at the college.
Yes.
I know Andrew, my son Andrew, teaches at New Bedford High School. And I know that if I send him something, at lunchtime or something, I'll send him something. Hey, click on this over here. This is interesting. He goes, I can't do that from here. I can't get to the internet. He can text me, but he has no access to the internet. So I think the schools do something to make it harder for the kids to try to access the internet. As far as the no cell phones in the school, call me on WBSM the next time.
Yeah, we'll have to chat about that.
Actually, this is 15 seconds off topic. They're not doing it at the high school level, but they are doing it at the middle school level, which I think is where you're at anyway. Do you like the idea of having the phones taken away? I mean, I do, but what do you think as a teacher?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
It is a lot easier teaching. Believe me when I say that.
Yeah.
They just started this week of having some boxes in each homeroom. So when you come in, it's all individualized, and you put your phone in the box, and it stays there, and then you go back at the end of the school day, and you get it out of the box, and then you can head home. But sometimes it doesn't always work the way you want it to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. All right, well, that's good.
Trying.
Well, I agree with you on that one. That's a good. I'm 100% with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, while you were reconnecting,
yes,
I was asking the audience if they had a particular moment in the game that they thought, oh my God, the Patriots are really going to lose the game because of this. Well, we forgot to mention the pass interference penalty. That was a tough one. I'm looking at that pass interference penalty. Again, I'm biased. I'm looking at it a Patriot point of view. There was some contact there, but gee, it seemed pretty minimal, and to me, that was a tough call to make at that particular point.
Yeah, and that happened a lot during some games over the weekend in week 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can look around the whole NFL, and some can be ticky-tacky. I look at it more, Paul, of where's the scenario where you are at the time when it happens. When it's a close game like that, why do you want the yellow flag to be the one that, turns the complexity of the game? Just let it play out. Unless it's really obvious, I don't really like it, especially when it's close like that. If it's like 48-7 or 35-10, that one's a little bit more, but when it's that close, boy, it's really got to be something significant. But, it is what it is, and that's why they played a game and they made the call.
Well, it looks like Ryan Martins agrees with what I was saying before. He's typing in on the comment line over here.
Yep.
The play on third down right before the blocked field goal, meaning the sack play.
Yep.
That's when he figured the Patriots were really in big trouble. And he says, don't take the sack, run the ball, and take the field goal. Exactly, 100%. Because now you're requiring Seattle to march down the field and get a touchdown. Now, it's a lot more pressure when you need a touchdown instead of a field goal. And that's a long, especially the way the kickoffs are now, right? That's a long way to go to score a touchdown. And with our defense, I think they would have had a good shot to win it right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can go back 2 or 3 yards, take the shotgun, get the ball, and then just get rid of it quickly.
Right.
But to drop back more and then the heat coming, listen, you got to throw it away. You got to put it in the stands. You got to find a way that, as you say, I know it comes upon you fast and you don't want to get an intentional ground and all that, but you have to realize that situation, it's right in front of you and what you need to do without taking the sack. So there's a lot of ways you can present that as a quarterback, but Brissett, a veteran, has to be better at that than what he was.
And, of course, there was another play that really hurt the Patriots. But, again, mistakes happen. So even though this particular mistake that I'm going to refer to happened, the game still could have been won. And, of course, there was the play in the first quarter or second quarter when Seattle scored that first touchdown on that blown coverage. That was just terrible. The guy was 20 yards behind everybody, and that was a big mistake.
Again, every play, you see, what if that happened in overtime, Paul, and they blow the coverage, and they find an open guy, and they run all the way, and they win the game? See, a play like that can happen, and that's what you're hoping for in overtime, or one missed tackle, or a certain block.
Oh, so that's why you want the ball. That's why you want the ball.
That's why you want the ball,
right.
So that's why I look at it that way. And so when you have those situations during a first quarter, second quarter, or third quarter, you just try to eliminate those, and you don't have those bad plays. But every team goes through it, and unfortunately, it works that way. And I saw it in a lot of games. Marvin Harrison had a great week, because there was a couple of blown coverages, and the next thing you know, the Rams were behind 21-0, and you're like, well, what's Arizona doing? It's not what Arizona was doing. It was what the Rams were doing on defense, which was blown coverages, and they're leaving this guy wide open. So, it happens. It works that way, and Seattle took advantage when they needed to.
Well, it's interesting because the overtime rules are different in the regular season than the playoffs, and I forgot about that when the Patriots were in. No, it wasn't the Patriots. It was in the Super Bowl, I think it was. Yeah, when Kansas City got another possession, even though the other team gets a touchdown, you still get a possession, right? So,
yes.
Like in the playoffs, right, if whoever gets the ball first can march down the field and get a touchdown, the other team still gets a possession. In the regular season, if you march down the field and get a touchdown, game over, you never get the ball. So if the Patriots defer, right, and Seattle comes down the field and there's a blown coverage and they lose the game, what would we, the Patriot fans, be saying? We said, we never even touched the ball. I know that's true, but I'm still looking at it like, what are the chances of the Patriots going down and get a touchdown? I just thought that there was almost no chance the way they were playing in the second half. They couldn't move the ball. It was 3 and out.
But didn't you think Seattle would have a better chance to score?
A little bit better than the Patriots, but the Patriots, but the Patriots defense is their strength.
And Gino was kind of picking them apart and doing a good job.
Yeah, but what about our heralded defense?
Yeah, but they were throwing the ball well and moving it, and they were finding Metcalf and making some big plays. And, he was consistent. He had a good rating going. So I thought they were pretty intense on the passing game, that the Patriots were, having a little bit difficult time than the run game. So, and in overtime, you want to move it down the field as quickly as you can and try to get in there. So, one person says one way, the other person says the other. But in that kind of situation, I just think trying to score first and end the game is what I'm looking for.
I'm looking at the Patriots schedule here, and you and I went one by one through the schedule, and you and I both had them 1-1 at this point in the season. I mean, I had Cincinnati, you had Seattle, okay, but even out 1-1. So I'm now looking at the next cluster of games here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 in a row that you and I predicted the Patriots to lose. I'm hoping that maybe I'm going to be wrong in some of these, the way the Patriots have been so competitive. But think about this: at New York Jets, at San Francisco 49ers, home to Miami, and then home to Houston, then at Jacksonville, and then home to the New York Jets before they play Tennessee. And Tennessee is the team that we thought they were going to win. So we had losses all the way through this next group of games. Hopefully there's a couple there that we can steal.
Well, how about the steal? And I said they would split against the Jets. So I don't know if it's going to be this one or the next one.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay, now how about Miami with no Tua?
Right.
Are you happy with Thompson going to be the quarterback for them, or Huntley that they picked up off the Ravens practice squad?
Right.
So now those two games make it a little more exciting now. Because,
Tom Brady.
I don't think that's going to going to happen, or they're going to sign anybody else. So now it gives a little bit more hope for the Patriots with those two. And you had 2 losses against them. So now I'm a little bit more saying, well, wait a minute. Miami hasn't looked that good in 2 games. Gives Patriots a little bit more hope.
Right. Yeah. When I saw that play, of course, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I just felt so bad for the guy. I thought that was a bad decision. He's had a history of concussions. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is just, it's bad for him. It's bad for the league. I was very upset when I saw it. You know what I mean? But then obviously after the time went by and I'm thinking, okay, well, he's going to have to take some time off. This other quarterback's going to come in. And I went, okay, this is the situation that it is. We feel bad for him and everything else. We hope he recovers and so forth. But now I'm looking at, yeah, you're right. The Patriots, these are winnable games against Miami, right? So, if the Patriots can at least split or even be competitive or maybe take both of them, now all of a sudden you got a different situation. Maybe you can get the 500. If they can get the 500, that would be just phenomenal. I would be very happy with a 500 given the way we are in the rebuild. But yes, the Miami games are now there for the taking.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not like their defense has been stellar. They've been really struggling and giving up a lot of points in the first 2 weeks. So McDonald has a lot of work to do with that crew to figure out what's going on. And now, you lost one of your best players. Who gets the ball to Tyreek Hill? Who gets the ball to Waddle? It's not the most accurate quarterback in a while. So expect that to be a real challenge for the Patriots come those 2 games when they play them, because I think that puts them right back in the mix to help out. And I still think it helps them out when they play the Jets. So there's 4 games right there that, mark down. Hopefully they can win 2 of them, if not maybe more.
Well, Ben seemed to think that they had a shot against the Jets. So, you said it could be a 16-10 game. Hey, you never know. The Jets have an off night. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has looked that good so far because they did play the 49ers and stuff. But, we'll see what happens there. Jacksonville, you and I both had Jacksonville as a loss. I don't know. Jacksonville, they're pretty good. They're going to be tough, but certainly a game that, you might be able to take. And a little comment on the Miami. There were some people that were saying, hey, Miami should trade for Mac Jones. Get Mac Jones out there and see what he can do with Tyreek Hill and and all these weapons that he never had in New England.
Well,
I think he'd do all right there. I have to be honest with you. I think he would. I mean, look what he would have there compared to what he had here.
Yeah, but Jacksonville's not going to get rid of Mac Jones.
No, right.
If something happens to Lawrence, they have a backup plan.
Right.
Things like that. So I don't think that's going to happen. And if it was, that would be done immediately. So if they would go get Huntley from Baltimore and to solidify that, then hey, whatever. But the Bills took it to him. They took it to him pretty hard. And now he's on his 4th concussion. This is a real situation for Tua because, not 1, not 2. You're talking 4 now. And there's a lot of people saying, not the word retire, but you better make very, very, very sure that this was just something minor on this last one because, one extra hit could really, really damage this young man, and you would never want to see that happen.
Yeah, right. People are competitors, like he went head first, and you got to check.
Yep.
You can't do that head first. But you're in the
Yep.
you're in the heat of the game. You're an athlete, a competitor. You're running for the first down. You see that first down marker. You want to win the game. You got to be able to be thinking, well, I got to go into the slide here. You know what I mean? It's tough to shut off that competitive switch.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the first thing is the slide.
Yeah.
And some of these quarterbacks have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because
we talked about how
there's a lot of
Mahomes
guys
changed
that,
this
like,
game.
Josh Allen loves to run.
Right.
Lamar Jackson likes to run. This is where they have to be very careful in today's game. They're too fast. They hit too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And two is a perfect example.
Right.
Going on number 4. So some of these quarterbacks have to be watching out how they move around the pocket.
Right, and we talked last week about how Mahomes kind of changed his game a little bit. He took a few hits early on, and now he's very smart. He runs when he has to run. He can kind of feel the situation, but he's very good at getting out of bounds and sliding. You don't see him taking hits like he did at the beginning of his career.
Oh, absolutely, because, at the beginning what had happened, he probably took some really wallops and said, whoa, I don't need any of this. I want to last around here for a long time. And so now I got to be cautious in what I do. And there's been a lot of other ones where, hey, I get out of the pocket, I'm flush. You just watch him dink it off to the sidelines, live for another play, and say, hey, I'm healthy. That's all I care about.
All right, while we have a chance here in our remaining moments, I want to talk about this top 100 NBA list, which was created by CBS Sports. It's the top 100 players who are in the NBA currently. This isn't like an all-time thing. This is just currently.
Correct. I saw that. Yes.
Yes, and you said that to me, and I'm thinking, here we go. We already know where we're going with this, right? No, I'm going down the list, and I'm thinking, how far down the list do we have to go before we see our first Boston Celtic? And then how far do we have to go down before we see our second Boston Celtic, right?
Okay.
So I'm looking at this list. I was going to try to type it up and get it on the screen, but I didn't have a way to do that. But I'm just going to reel them off. Okay, Jokic is number 1. Number two is Giannis. Number 3, Luka Doncic. Number 4, Gilius Alexander. Number 5 is Joel Embiid. All right, so there's your top 5. Number 6, and again, I know it's not by position, so so now that's your top 5. Now you get number 6, Steph Curry. All right, and then number 7 is Jason Tatum. All right.
Right.
So I know I'm a little bit more critical of Tatum than you are, but I see him there at number 7. So I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. Obviously, I think Steph Curry should be ahead of him. I think Doncic should be ahead of him. Jokic. I have no issue with any of the players that are ahead of him. But here's a few of the ones that are behind him. Okay. Number 8, LeBron James. Number 9, Kevin Durant. Number 10, Anthony Edwards. Number 11, Anthony Davis. Then you get the Victor Wembanyama, but he's only but he's just there now. You got Jalen Brunson at 13. So then it goes Booker. Then number 15 is Jaylen Brown. Number 15 is Jaylen Brown. Number 16 is Morant. Number 17, Halliburton. Number 18, Kawhi Leonard. Number 19, Donovan Mitchell. And number 20, Paul George. Coming in at number 22 is Jimmy Butler.
Right.
Drew Holiday is 32. And Derek White is number 36.
Right.
So what do you think?
So let me stop you there.
Yes.
And let me ask you. Let me ask you between 8 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you like better ahead of Tatum?
Well, I know LeBron James is older now.
Yep.
But I still.
You're going. This is a preview of what's coming up this year.
Well,
there's nothing to do from before. It's what they're saying for this year.
For this year, okay. Well, this
is rankings for what's coming up. So, example, Jimmy Butler was, let's say, 11 last year.
Yeah. But
Jimmy Butler's now 22 because Jimmy Butler did not have a great year.
Right.
That's why it is.
Yeah. So going into the next year, okay. Yes. So I'm not necessarily last year. Well, look, LeBron James is still LeBron James. I mean, I know a lot of people weren't too impressed by the Olympics. But I thought he was really, running the show out there, especially in the early rounds. Kevin Durant, I mean, he hit a couple of really clutch shots. I still take Tatum over Edwards. I think Edwards is not really ready for prime time. He got a little cocky in the playoffs there, and it kind of caught him. Anthony Davis, I'm not too sure about him. If I would put him ahead of Tatum, Halliburton, he's come on strong. Jimmy Butler, I still like Jimmy Butler better when you're in a playoff game. Jaylen Brown, I mean, Jesus, the guy, what more does he have to do? He's the MVP in the NBA semifinals, and then he's the MVP in the finals, and they still bury him down at number 15. I mean, what does he have to? What does he have to do?
All right. So let me ask you this: when you look at Jaylen Brown, what did they have him at last year?
Oh yeah, let me see. 24. So he went up.
All right. So he went from 24 to 15.
Yes.
So that's what they're saying, how much he increased in the year.
And Tatum was the same. He was at 7, and he's still at 7.
He started at 7, and he stayed at 7. Yeah. So to them, he has not really improved any. He's just stayed at his level.
Right.
So that's how they're, predicting their rankings on how they do. And as I said, Butler dropped because of the non-playing and the injury and all that stuff, compared to some of the other guys. So,
You think it's just about right?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. Do you think Brown is better than James and Durant and Edwards and Brunson and Halliburton and those guys?
Oh, Steve Lavoie just commented. He said he feels Tatum is right about where he should be. Yeah, I mean, obviously James is now 40 years old, so that's certainly a factor. But I got to tell you, I mean, I still like LeBron James, over Tatum in a big game, Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant, he was on a team that lost, and then he went to the team that won, the next year. Okay, but he's still, very good. As far as Jaylen Brown, you and I had this debate, and we kid each other about it, and it's like you're a Tatum guy, I'm a Brown guy. Well, that's not really true. We both like both players. I just think
I like both guys.
But I just don't think that there's a big distance between them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not necessarily saying that Brown is better than Tatum. I just think he's pretty much as equal because he brings stuff to the table that the other guy doesn't bring. And the other guy, Tatum brings some stuff, he can do some playmaking abilities that Jaylen can't do. So, and I give you too, that Jason Tatum gets a lot of attention on the court, which frees up Brown, so the reverse is not true. But then Brown is a little bit more of a, hey, there's a big game, there's a big moment, and he doesn't come through every time, but he certainly came through last year in the semifinals and the finals. So you know what I mean? I think that they ought to move him up. And by the way, they should have put him on the Olympic team. I don't know how the heck they didn't put him on the Olympic team. I mean, that was absolutely absurd. But anyway, I think Brown and Tatum should be nearer to each other on this list than they are. I don't think there should be like a big space between them.
Yeah, and the only difference that I'm going to give is I thought in playoffs Brown was better, but during the regular season I thought Tatum was more consistent in all of the categories than Brown.
Right, but in the playoffs is when the money. That's when the money's on the table. That's when the big moment comes. That's when the spotlight is brightest.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is during the season, you're not going to have games like that where it's always down the stretch and you got to make some kind of a last play. They can beat a team by 30, come back the next day, win by 25, come back the next day, win by 15, and you watch the consistency of what Tatum did compared to 5 games. If Tatum was consistent throughout, Brown might have had 1 or 2 games. Now, I understand your theory in the playoffs of what his consistency was, winning shots down the stretch, even though Tatum was still consistent during that playoffs. Maybe not the money clutch shot, but again, these rankings are going by the consistency of the player, of everything he does. And I think that's why he happens to be a little bit higher at this particular moment. Now, that could drop again next year.
I think the fact that the Celtics won the championship might be helping this list a little bit, because they say, well, he helped the team win the championship. Well, that's true, but you see Drew Holiday and Derek White and a lot of these other players, Jaylen Brown, did so much to get them over the hump. In my view, and Tatum was just kind of the same as he always was, but the difference is they had these other guys. And by the way, if you take any of these guys, LeBron James, Durant, I'm not sure about Anthony Edwards with Davis and Halliburton, Donovan Mitchell, any of these guys, and you swap them off with Tatum, I think the Patriots are so deep they probably would win anyway.
Right.
Whereas like the Red Sox don't win the World Series without Big Papi. The Red Sox don't win the World Series without Pedro Martinez. Or whatever. Like the Chicago Bulls don't win without Michael Jordan. But now you got like Tatum. You can take him off, put somebody else there, they win anyway.
So you're telling me if Tatum was not on the court, the Celtics would still win the World Championship?
If he was replaced by a lot of these other guys on this list. If you put James there instead of him, or Durant there instead of him.
Okay, so would you say the same thing if Brown wasn't there? And they put in James or Durant and all that, can they still win?
Yeah, I would say they still win because they're deep.
Yeah.
They're deep.
Yeah, again, it's kind of tough. It's two guys that I just hope they stay together for a while.
Yeah.
And we watch Boston, win for that long period of time. And I think Tatum is where he is right now. And could Brown be a little bit better? Yeah, absolutely. And they could be a little bit tighter. I have no problem saying that. I'll agree with Steve Lavoie and what he said. And speaking of Steve Lavoie,
yes,
I want to give props where props is due, Paul.
Yes.
The New Orleans Saints went to Dallas and kicked our ass.
Hey, did you get my text about the Saints marching in?
Well, Steve said it last week and said, watch out for our team. We're coming through with our offense, and he was right. He went in there. I don't know if Dallas took him too lightly or thought, hey, they're not that good, but they came right at us and they whipped us pretty good. So,
New Orleans any good? Are they that good that they should be able to beat Dallas like that?
Listen, the only good news I got about that is, and Steve knows, I got his Alvin Kamara on my fantasy team, so I was real happy about that.
Yeah.
Because Kamara had a great day, but right now, their philosophy and their new coaching, they're buying into it. And Derek Carr showed that he can get the job done. And you go into Dallas where they don't really lose that much, Paul. Maybe in the playoffs, but during the regular season, they do pretty good. And they took it to us. They whooped us pretty good. So back to the drawing board for Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer, and they need to find a way to get the job done. Now, it doesn't matter. No one's going to go undefeated, I don't think, in any of these days in football. It just won't happen. So we have to take this loss. We got to build off it and figure out, hey, what on earth did we do wrong, and get better. Even when we won championships, 12-4. Some teams were 14-2, others 13-3. It's not like you have to be undefeated to win championships.
No.
So they have to find a way to build off this loss and go back to the film and say, hey, this team took it to us. We have to be better. So hopefully they learn from it.
Well, let's talk baseball for a moment if we could. Your Baltimore Orioles are certainly going into the playoffs. The Yankees are playing pretty well. The Red Sox, I got to tell you, talk about being frustrated. Watching that Patriots blow that game at the end is kind of like watching the Red Sox every night. They've over the past, say, month, now they've been out of it. So, it's kind of like you can almost feel like they're mailing it in a little bit psychologically, I think. But I can just remember, because baseball, the thing about baseball that I still like is baseball's every night. You know what I mean? So you have a football game, you talk about it for a week. That's one way, of course, to follow sports. But the Red Sox just like every night, put it on. How they doing? Put it on. How they doing? And they're 2 games out of the wild card. Then they're 3 games out of the wild card. Then they're 2 games out of the wild card. Then 3 and I've sucked into this thing. And I'm thinking, man, they made some deals at the trade deadline, but that didn't help them at all. They got these journeymen and these bums and everything else. And man, they just they just can't seem to finish games off. Their offense is okay, but could be better. But I think that middle relief, they have some pretty good starters. They get into the 5th or 6th inning, but they've blown games like almost nightly. Like they would have a lead, and I tell my wife, this lead is 4-0. This lead's not safe, and the middle relief come in and blow the game. So their bullpen is really, really suspect.
I think it's been a combination of things. Some clutch hitting when they've needed it, men on bases, leave bases loaded, can't get the big hit, made some errors, some costly errors at certain times. Occasionally Pavetta has a rough outing, Bello has a rough outing, not giving you 5 or 6 innings like you want. And then obviously your closer in the middle relief, trying to get the job done to keep it in there and keep a tight game when you're down 2-1. Your starter gets out, you bring a guy, you want to keep it 2-1, and the next thing you know, it's 5-1. And now you're chasing. And so that's happened to the Red Sox post-All-Star break, and they haven't looked back and have not found a way to turn it back in their advantage, where they did a little bit more before the All-Star. I just don't think it's one thing, Paul. I think it's a combination of things.
Hopefully the Red Sox will spend some money in the off season because I think they do have like a cluster of young players there to build around some of the pitching, and you just get some veterans in there. I think that would help them. But before we let you go, Jeremy Swayman is not showing up to practice. I think he's holding out to try to get the big contract. And I got mixed emotions because I think he is that kind of guy that can stand on his head and get hot at the right time. We saw it in the playoffs last year. But I don't know if he's really proven it all the time either. He had a lot of stretches during the season where he was not playing well. He had a couple of weeks he was ice cold, and they took the alternation off, if you remember, and they put in the other guy, and the other guy kind of settled things down, and then Swayman came back. So he's certainly not immune to having those cold stretches that goalies have. So I just think he's asking for a little much. The Bruins screwed the thing up. They should have not traded the other goalie until they nailed this one down and figure out what they're going to do. Now Swayman's got all the leverage. He goes in the playoffs. He's hot. They trade Olmark, and now he's holding all the cards. And the Bruins don't want to let him go. And I don't blame them for trying to work it out. But Swayman is asking for the moon here.
Well, the old adage, money talks, so people walk. And as you said, he's got the leverage now because with not Olmark, they're figuring out, okay, what they got down in Providence, what they got going on here, what are they going to go do, which is not much. So pay me the big bucks, and I'll stick around. But that's today's society, Paul, and unfortunately, that's part of the business. And Don Sweeney and Cam Neely are going to have to find a way to handle this business, because they need a goaltender.
Right. Do you think
that's how the Bruins play? The Bruins play
right.
that way. It's not like they're offensive-minded like the Edmonton Oilers, and they can go out there and beat you 8-6. They have to find a way to win close games, and they need a goaltender, and Swayman's supposed to be the real deal.
Do you think it's a bad idea to overpay for a goalie, no matter how good the goalie is? Because you still need to pay some. You got to pay some defensemen. You got to pay for some offense. It gets tricky if the one player, no matter how good that one player is asking for too much.
Yeah, well, if you're happy with what you have and you're happy with your farm system, and you got young kids coming up and they can do replacement, then you say, yeah, okay, I'm going to go get them, and then use money other places wisely, and then figure out from there. But you need a goalie, Paul. You need something that keeps you in games or can win a game for you when your team is just not playing that good. So if he's that legit, I think you have to go get him.
Well, he was fantastic in the playoffs. I was fortunate enough to be at that 7-game overtime when Pasternak scored that goal, which was so much fun because that's such a rare thing in sports and hockey to have a 7th-game overtime, perhaps the most exciting situation of all of sports, and for your top guy to go in and score a goal. But Swayman was unbelievable in that game. Swayman was fantastic. I think the score was 2-1, during the game. He was unbelievable. And then after the Bruins got eliminated, right? Bruins got eliminated, and they like to raise their sticks and thank the fans and all that. I mean, Swayman got this huge ovation. The fans were thanking him for such a great playoff that he had. So he knows he's holding all the cards. But you also want to be on a team that can win the Stanley Cup too. So these guys, they get greedy. You know what I mean? Just balance it out. Get a reasonable deal, and then let's try to win the cup. Don't just take all the money and then you can't win the cup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, if he thinks he wants that money and then realizing he's going to get peppered and take a beating, I mean, if he wants that, then because there's no one there that can help him, that's what the issue is. So we'll see which way he turns, but I think they need to sign him.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River, Citywide Glass, with locations in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton, Lakeville Athletic Club in Lakeville, Massachusetts, and attorney John Seed in New Bedford. I'd like to thank Lisa Corrido, Ryan Martin, Steve Lavoie, Ben from Dartmouth for contributing to the show. And the next time our partner here, Chris Santos, will be back in his normal location down there in the man cave. And hey, tomorrow night, hey, this is a game that everybody thinks the Patriots have no chance. So as a fan of the underdog, it's almost like house money. You know what I mean? Like, they're not supposed to win the game. They're on the road. They're going against Aaron Rodgers, one of the great quarterbacks of all time. If you can go down there and steal that thing, that would be wonderful. So that's the way we got to look at it. We got to look at it and say, hey, we got to go in there and try to get the upset.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they can do it. and they've done it there before, and they've won there before. So I'm hoping they can finish the job. We'll see what they look like tomorrow night on the short week.
All right. Well, that wraps up this edition of Santos on Sports. For my invisible partner, Mr. Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Hey, have a great night. Let's hope the Patriots can pull off the upset tomorrow night. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.